Welcome back to We Talk Money, the last show of 2024, probably. I think I usually like to take the last couple of weeks off, but with the way that the markets have been moving, who knows? We've got a lot of crazy movement. Nasdaq just made a new all-time high. Bitcoin just tagged 100K for the fourth or fifth time over the past couple of weeks. And yeah, we're just in full euphoria season. But my question is this going to continue into 2025, or you think we're going to have a crash in Q1? Have you guys been given that much thought?
Definitely have. It is money-making season, but there's a lot of toppy signs out there. And I think there's some stocks that are due for a massive pullback. And I think it could happen early in 2025 based on tax loss selling, perhaps, a more, what's the right word? Not dovish. What's the opposite of dovish? Hawkish Fed. I couldn't think of the word for a second. More hawkish Fed, more uncertainty over the actual policies that are going to get implemented under the new presidential administration in the U.S., U.S.-China tensions. There's definitely stuff in 2025 that can throw a wrench into the bull spirit.
Well, so are you guys not looking at value stocks like Palantir? Things that are basically just so oversold and so cheap right now. I mean, come on, the market's not expensive at all.
Palantir trading at what, 50 to 60 times sales. Yeah, that's the most expensive stock in the entire tech universe. But they're going to get added to the NASDAQ 100 most likely at the end of this week. So there could be some further buying at the top. It's kind of like SMCI when it got added to the NASDAQ 100. It was like added at the Pico top. And so it's down a lot since. Now they have accounting issues. I don't know if Palantir is going to have those kinds of issues, but the ETFs are buying stocks that are at like nosebleed multiples because people are buying them in anticipation of the ETF edition. So it's kind of wild to see. Like some of these things are definitely trading without any kind of valuation anchors. That being said, Palantir's had a great year, good fundamental results, and things don't have to trade at fair value really ever. So
yeah. You want to know what just now tagged a new all-time high?
Yes.
Tesla.
Hey,
this is a miss for me, man. I was stalking this breakout trade last week, and on Thursday it actually broke out of that 360 resistance level, and I did not pull the trigger, and now I am wallowing in my own regret. But yeah, I mean, Tesla, another one that just now tagged a new all-time high above 415. So yeah, I mean, this is one of obviously the hottest talked about stocks in the world. And right now with the Optimus, robotics thing coming down the pipe and the new version of self-driving, people are just kind of back into driving this thing up. And, this is really the first time that I've been bullish on the stock in a few years, because we've been stuck in this just choppy kind of mid-range zone. But right after the election, the world kind of realized that Elon was in with old Trumpy Trump. And so, yeah, he's got nothing but green lights. What do you guys make of Tesla? Is this something that you're leveraged long? Or are you still skeptical? Or are you sitting on the sidelines?
I mean, I feel just, well, I'll let Stock Geek go. For me, it's always been in the too hard pile, but now it is starting to get interesting with the robotics angle. I mean, I still think we're far away from all of that, but yeah, it's kind of always been in the too hard pile for me personally, but I can see why a trader would have wanted to take the breakout for sure. But Trav, I know you have some thoughts on all of this as well.
All hail Papa Elon. I don't know. Yeah, Tesla's hard for me, man. It's another one of those stocks that just never, ever trades at fair value, what I would consider a fair valuation. So it's my analytical mind cannot comprehend the heights to which Tesla can rise to. There's a lot to be excited about there, but it's still primarily in the short run generating revenues and profits from an automobile business, which people often forget about these days. But yeah, I don't know. It's it's the most expensive auto sector stock. People say, oh, it's not an auto stock. Well, okay, fine, whatever. I guess it's not. But if you did lump it in with other auto manufacturers, it's the most expensive by far. In fact, it's actually the market cap of Tesla is now greater than all of every single other auto manufacturer combined across the world of any publicly traded stock. I actually have the watch list set up for myself, and you add up Toyota, Honda, GM, Ford, Nissan, all the other ones, BMW, Mercedes, etc. Add them all up, add the market caps of all those stocks up, even the Chinese ones, BYD, NIO, Li Auto, add them all up. Still doesn't get you to Tesla's market cap today. So there is a premium already being paid for future things like robotics and self-driving cars and the mega pack businesses. That being said, I showed our community members the other day a spreadsheet I put together showing kind of the potential long-term market cap that could come from robotics if it really became a widespread thing. And, it can be a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. But, it's not going to happen in 2025. It's going to be like a 10 to 20 year type of rollout. And so what do you pay for that today is a good question. And I don't think many people are actually asking themselves that question. They're just sort of buying and saying, but the robots are coming and self-driving cars are coming. It's funny, because people say the same thing about Palantir. It's like, well, they're growing at 30% a year and they're getting all these government contracts. And I'm like, yeah. But like, does that mean you buy at any price? Do you buy at 100? Do you buy at 200? Do you buy at 300, 400, 500? Do you buy when it's, the largest company in the world, even though they're growing? Like at some point you overpay for future growth. And so I don't know, it's we're in an environment where people don't think and ask those questions. But I think that's precisely when you should be asking those questions. So
yeah, I think to your point, there's different types of markets, right? There's markets where things are kind of beat and they're undervalued. There's markets where things are just kind of choppy and, kind of some are overvalued, some are undervalued. Right now, we are in a momentum traders market, I would say. Is
1,000%.
Breakouts, squeezes, continuation trades, trying to short. I saw on Wall Street Bets this week, there was somebody that like took out a loan to short Tesla into this strength. And it's like, it's not hard to make money right now. You just have to avoid doing stupid shit. And guess what's in the stupid category? Shorting stuff that has momentum, right? So you have a few options. You can either be a trader and say, yeah, valuations are nuts on some of these things. I'm going to take technical trades, meaning I'm going to get in specific areas and I'm going to close at predefined profit targets and I'm going to trade momentum. Or you sit on the sidelines and say, I don't quite understand it. I don't want to take on the risk. But one thing that's incredibly dangerous is to step into that rocket, right? If buying a falling knife is risky, like trying to cap a rocket that's shooting into outer space is even more dangerous because stocks theoretically have infinite upside. And so if you're shorting into big, strong moves, you're going to get run over. And one thing that we saw as a case in point for that is Bitcoin. I mean, how many public idiots did we see shorting from the 30 to 70K leg and then again from the 60 to 100K leg? It's like, if all you do is sit back and identify momentum and then trade along with momentum, right there, it puts you on the right side of the market. The only question is like managing risk to reward and what, trying to get the best price possible. So just don't do anything stupid and you won't get hurt.
Well said.
My question is, will SpaceX become public? They just got pinned with a $350 billion valuation as a private company. I know people that actually work for SpaceX, and they've mentioned that they're not going to go public, but I don't, is that true? I feel like it's hard for me to believe that SpaceX doesn't go public sometime
eventually, if they actually want like real liquidity, they almost have to. Although, I've heard, employees have been getting some liquidity in some of these later rounds. My guess is SpaceX doesn't want to go public right now because it's still, they're still in investment mode for the company. They're heavily investing in the new rocket programs and new capabilities. And so my guess is they're deeply cash flow negative. And so as a public company, you'd rather come public and have, things like increasing profitability and things like that, and metrics that, traditional investors can get behind. But if you're a SpaceX style company, you're still burning cash heavily and dependent on capital raises. If the private market is giving you that capital, yeah, you really don't have an incentive to go public, especially if your employees are able to get liquidity as well. So yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense that they're staying private for now. Eventually though, I mean, like eventually they've created so many paper millionaires and multimillionaires within their own company. They've got to go public to give themselves some liquidity more broadly. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
I have a funny story. So about a decade ago, I was hanging out with some entrepreneurs and investors in Austin, and part of the old PayPal mafia was there. And I talked to some of the earliest investors in SpaceX. And it's funny looking back, because at the time I just didn't get it at all. I'm like, okay, so you mean we're going to go to Mars and we're going to do these satellite things? And it's funny how much can actually happen in a decade. Because here we are, fast forward, and Elon's, catching rockets out of the sky, and, we've got internet all over the globe now, thanks to it. So I think one thing that's exciting and that I'm really bullish about over the next few years is the rate of change in technology is picking up. And like, yeah, we're going to have boom and bust. We're going to have bear markets, but I'm just so damn optimistic. And like, it just seems like in the US, there's also this air of optimism. And, what was it Trump said yesterday? If you bring $1 billion to the US economy, we're going to pave the way and we're going to get the red tape out of the way. So things like that just make me very optimistic for the future.
I saw, oh, go ahead, Trev.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, I think a lot of people are sharing that optimism. And that's where it'll be interesting to see in 2025, where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. Like, when the Trump administration is actually in office and, things start happening, like are the deliverables going to match that excitement, and we'll have to give them some time, obviously, to see that play out. But I think that's one area where the market could potentially get disappointed in some of those, areas. We'll have to see. But yeah, I think a lot of people are optimistic heading into 2025.
Yeah. Nick, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I saw an interesting tweet thread that went viral on Twitter or X, and it was about a man from the UK who came to the US, and he was comparing the differences between like the optimism that the US has versus how people overseas or in Europe maybe have a little bit more pessimism just inherently. And he was just basically talking about like, this is why the US continues to grow and continues to be the place to invest. And it just got me. I don't know, how true that is. I don't know that many people from overseas, but it does make you wonder if that's true, how good it's going to be to stay invested in the US, because there's this big debate over the US versus international investing. A lot of people are like, do I allocate to international? Yes, it's cheaper, but they're not growing at the same rate. And so it's just an interesting argument. And I thought that was a interesting point that he made, how he could sense the optimism as someone from the UK.
Yeah. What's the most popular like emerging markets ticker?
EFA. Oh, well, I don't know if that's emerging markets.
It's probably the
I have it here. Hold on.
MSCI, right? Like the
Yeah, the
MSCI World
MSCI
or something like.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, I was just gonna, point out that like, yeah, the global markets have absolutely underperformed the US. And like, I put this in the category of like, I'm not going to try to front run when that's going to change, because it could last a long time. Right. So it's kind of like Bitcoin, like the whole like 4-year market cycle. Like, yeah, we've had exponential gains. When is that going to end? I don't know, but I'm not going to try to front run it or guess. I think I have the same attitude with the US economy. It's like, dude, we're kicking ass. We've got, optimism on the horizon. We're coming out of a period of just really repressive regulations and all this stuff. So I guess I'm just not going to try to guess when that's going to shift or if it's ever going to shift, because I'm just so bullish on the US.
It's hard not to be right now, to be honest, as an allocator, but I'm sure there's opportunity internationally, but it's hard not to be bullish on the US and want to stay invested in the US right now.
Yeah. Speaking of being bullish on the US, there is one stock in particular that is pulling up the entire stock market today. And that little stock is a little unknown company that goes by the name of Google, aka Alphabet. I don't know if you guys have heard of this company. But apparently they're in the quantum computing business now. And this was the big rage where Bitcoin actually temporarily crashed all the way down to 95K yesterday on fears that Google or Alphabet is going to be able to crack the blockchain. And because of this announcement, I believe this is the primary driver. Google now hit a brand new all-time high in price. Travis, I think you might have an opinion on this.
I have a very non-consensus opinion. I have a hot take, if you will. I think quantum computing is bullshit. to put it lightly. No, I mean, I think there's real science being done in the field, but I think people have, especially like your average person, has a very superficial understanding of where quantum computing is along the timeline. Like the Google thing only made it worse. Honestly, I saw so many tweets yesterday that made me want to puke. And I think the move up in Google stock is also really, really stupid, just as the sell-off in Bitcoin was very, very stupid. You know, like I said, there's real science happening in quantum computing, but you have to understand a few things, like a few core things. This is still very much a frontier science field. Like all the talk about quantum computers being able to solve classical problems that would take, longer than the age of the universe, but a quantum computer can do in 5 minutes. When they made that claim, it all of a sudden triggered that fear in everyone that, oh, well, encryption can get cracked now. The Bitcoin network could be at risk. But if you actually look into the details, like the benchmark that they used can't even be confirmed by a classical computer. So it's sort of like they're using something that a classical computer can't even compete on. Second of all, like it's all theoretical. Like they didn't actually solve a real world problem. This whole circuit, forget the exact name of it, but like the benchmark they used, circuit simulation or whatever is kind of a made up benchmark that's specifically made for quantum computers to sort of display like superiority, but it's like a made up thing. Quantum computers, like even Google's has like 100 qubits, and basically you'd need like millions of qubits to like actually even do something useful, particularly like things like cracking the Bitcoin network. Cracking the Bitcoin network, forget like the qubit issue, because they're slowly scaling up qubits. Like I think like 32 qubits was like state of the art like 2 years ago. To run something that has, let's say, 1 million qubits would require basically the energy equivalent of like 15 nuclear power plants. So right now, if you go look at the one quantum computer that Google has in this lab that they've been working on for 10 years, it's like this wild mess of cables and racks and metal. By the way, they don't even show you a real picture of their quantum computing chip. They only had illustrations, which I think is a huge red flag, by the way. These things cannot be mass manufactured the way that silicon chips can. There's literally a massive, massive warehouse room with thousands of cables, like painstakingly put together by hand, with all of this extra liquid cooling, with all of these lasers, like very, very expensive and like using like rare things like gallium. And so like, anyway, there's all this, like, if you actually dive deep into this stuff, these quantum computers are what I would call like not scalable in the real world, not even close. Like they're basically like science projects that require like all of this capital and all of this energy and all of this like human intervention to like do this one thing that they claim like beat a classical computer, but couldn't actually be run like 24/7 and couldn't actually be scaled up to do anything useful in the next like 5 or 10 years. So like people are worried about, oh, like encryption's screwed and Bitcoin network's screwed. And it's like, no, actually, like we're so far from this actually being like a real world thing, like, that it's almost not even worth speculating about at this point. Like it's such a silly thing. It'd be like in 1950, right? When they had these room sized computers, like, right. These room sized computers with vacuum tubes, right? It'd be like in 1950 saying like, everyone's going to have a computer in their pocket and we're all going to have this abundant computing power. And it's like, yeah, we do. It's 70 years later that happened, or maybe 60 years later when it actually started, right? So it's like, that's where we are with quantum computing today. We have these room-sized massive things that are very inefficient energy hogs, and they're so far from being like mass-produced at a point where they could actually do real-world things that it's not even worth getting worked up about. That's my take. That's my hot take.
I love
Drop
it.
the
And
mic.
there was another tweet here from Luke Groman that says, "Can anyone explain why I'm the only one seeing people raise concerns about the risk to a 2 trillion market cap like Bitcoin from quantum computing, but not to the 18 trillion in total US commercial bank deposits, the 40 trillion in retirement assets, or the 87 trillion in assets custodied at DTCC?" So it's like, yeah, it's one of those problems where it's like, if it does happen like that, which Trav, as you said, like the odds of that are very, very small. It's like, we've got way bigger problems. And in the short run, what I think is going to happen is, as quantum computing gets closer and closer, and who knows if it's 5 years or 50 years away, but as that happens, there's going to be technology that comes in to protect and upgrade the existing and new infrastructure, right? So people are already thinking of this for like messaging, right? Like Signal apps and things like that. So I think that technology will just evolve with it, and there's probably not going to be like just this solo event that just breaks everything. But if that happens, we've got bigger problems than just Bitcoin.
Oh, we've got bigger problems than just the financial system. I mean, your entire like military apparatus would essentially be hackable. Your every computer on Earth would be essentially infinitely accessible and searchable by anyone who had like the quantum technology. So like, I think they'd probably be, I think we'd probably be worried about some of those issues first, then,
Okay,
things
so long Bitcoin, short Google. Got it.
Well, it's interesting too. There's a bunch of quantum computing, smaller quantum computing companies that are public as well, that went public via SPAC in 2021. A lot of those are coming back to life as well. So IonQ has really been the big one, but also Rigetti Computing, RGTI, D-Wave Quantum, which is Google's original quantum lab. That one goes under the ticker of QBTS. There's a few others as well, but these stocks are seeing kind of a renaissance. Although interestingly, they're selling off on the Google news, which I'm not sure about that reaction. But there's a bit of a hype bubble here, and that hype bubble could go a long way, by the way, with this quantum stuff. But again, I don't think it's actually real, and most of those companies are just burning lots of cash on the path to potentially, maybe someday, there's like a quantum computing real world application. I don't know, but
hey, but in the meantime, if we got momentum to the upside, baby, let's trade it. Let's ride these waves until the game of hot potato ends.
Well, I have a question. Could the quantum computing power be seen similar to like nuclear weapons, where it's like only certain people have access to it? It only gets deployed for certain things, and it's kind of like not everyone has nuclear bombs, but they're not bombing each other, so kind of like that.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because again, quantum, especially to get to the scale that people are talking about, would need a tremendous amount of power, a tremendous amount of certain types of resources. And with all that, it would obviously wield a bunch of power to do a lot of nefarious things. So yeah, Nick, you actually bring up a really good point, which is they may actually have to regulate it into some sort of system where it's like, only certain entities can actually utilize or wield that power. Yeah, it's an interesting thought.
Well, guys, we've got a lot of questions that came in. I think a lot of people know that this is possibly the last show of the year. And so we wanted to do a rundown of what worked this year, what didn't, some of our best trades, some of our worst trades, and then also jump into some Q&A. But, I think something that is just super encouraging and just beautiful to see is how Bitcoin is still following the long-term thesis. Just zooming out here. I mean, we're looking at this. I wouldn't call this a God candle. I'd call this like a saint candle. We're up still a lower percentage than last year. Last year, we were up 155%. As of today, here on December 11th, we're up around 137%, and sitting literally right on top of 100K. So for me, this is one of the best trades of the year. What about you guys on the stock side? Also, I mean, I guess on the stock side for me, MicroStrategy, this was my best executed trade from 200 to 500. Still got a runner on it. We'll see if it keeps going. But I mean, for me, this was just a momentum play. What has worked for you guys this year? What has not worked? What are maybe some lessons that you've taken from this year? And what are you looking forward to in 2025?
I'll start. Trading has worked for me. I've had a few good, shorter term swing trades, the upstart type of trades. I've also, I feel like I executed well on the retail side with Lulu and Ulta. Seeing the value. I was looking for some value out there, and it was hard to find, but that's where I was looking and that's where I found it. And it seemed to work on the earnings. So kind of trying to time some of these bottoming patterns going around in the market. I think it has been kind of my bread and butter over the past year. So finding these charts that are beaten down. Why are they beaten down? What do the technicals look like? Do we have a nice structured bottoming breakout setup? These are the types of things for me that have been working on the trading and investing side.
Cool. Trav, what about you? What's been working this year so far?
One of the biggest profit contributors for me for the most part this year have actually been just continued winners from the 2023 and maybe even late 2022 parts of the cycle where I was accumulating stuff near the lows, like a couple to throw out, Spotify, Meta, Hims and Hers, like those have been, continuing to just really just ramp higher throughout the year without a whole lot of massive corrections. And I've been trimming them along the way, but man, those were just super well-timed buys during the tougher parts of the cycle when I thought people were being short-sighted about the future on those companies. So that's contributed actually a huge portion of my profits. And then I had, I think the other bucket of stuff that's done well for me this year has been really well-timed dip buys on stuff like Chewy at $15. I had Coursera had a 50% pop that I took good profits on. Was buying that at the lows. There was actually a pretty good trade on some JD call options in the Chinese stock space. Still playing that, by the way. We think that theme could be an interesting one to get some juice out of in 2025.
You've got some Baba too on the Chinese front, right?
Yep. And then and then Lyft was another one that did a really good dip buy when I thought the stock got sold off on what was really good earnings results over the summer. And it's really just been a story for me of buying stuff when I think the market is being really short-sighted and picking up good companies that are being unfairly sold off. And so that's been really the theme for my last 2 or 3 years. I wish I'd been a little bit more aggressive on risk taking with some of the momentum plays this year. There's some stuff where I definitely have some regrets not buying aggressively that we had called out even as potential trades in the community where I just didn't make them big trades. So stuff like SoFi and Robinhood and Rocket Lab and, and even recently, like the MicroStrategy stuff that you took, like I probably should have jumped on the bandwagon. So, the missed profit opportunities are probably my biggest whiffs on the year, but it's good when you have a year where your biggest losses are the profit that you didn't make because you didn't take the trade rather than, something that you went aggressive on that went heavily against you. So I don't know
Netflix was another one, Trav, from that time period where we were kind of buying the beat up stuff.
Yep,
Netflix has been insane.
You held it though, right? I sold mine too early.
I haven't sold a share, but I think I should. But honestly, it looks like it wants to go for 1,000 a share. So I don't know. I feel like maybe that's where I'll start to scale out. But yeah, that's a really good point about some of those things that you picked up in 2022, 2023.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed this, Nick. If I'm not mistaken, your average price is around 190, right?
This one in Meta, I would say we nailed it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, Trav nailed Meta better than I did, but yeah.
That's what I love. Like there's so many different ways to skin the cat, right? Like for anybody that's new to the show, Travis comes from the hedge fund world where, he's mostly like a value driven, like I would say like multi-year holder, right? That's typically the plays you're looking for. So like cycle trades or, longer term stuff where I'm more of like a momentum trader and like a cycle trader. I've got my different capital buckets. And so, yeah, well, you know, something that I mean, you can always say this, right? You can always say like, oh, we could have done more. We could have sized up on things. But one thing that I'm actually proud of is the fact that I didn't get distracted by all the altcoin bullshit and then like convert a lot of my Bitcoin for altcoins. Because as we know, you know, over the past 2 years, really since the bull market started in January 2023, Bitcoin dominance for the most part has been climbing higher during this whole 2 years, up until just the last couple of weeks, where we finally started to see some rotation from Bitcoin into altcoins. So, like, yes, altcoins have gone up, but Bitcoin's gone up faster than most of them. Now, there's this whole altcoin or meme coin craze that we've seen going nuts. And I think the Hawk may have been a top signal for that.
You don't think it was fart coin, or
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be paying attention to what happens with memes after the holidays. But for anybody that doesn't know, the Hawk girl, which went viral for talking about giving BJs, she did a pump and dump where it lasted a whole of like 5 or 10 minutes, and they made tens of millions of dollars and just completely scammed all of her followers. CoffeeZilla did a big whole expose on it, and it's just disgusting. You know, it's just really, really bad that they stole that much money from non-crypto people. And I think, you know, there's only so much dumb money, right? And after you burn a lot of people and people get wise to it, the capital just kind of dries up. So that's why I'm not just buying this whole like meme coin super cycle thing where in 2 years meme coins are going to be higher. It's a game of hot potatoes, and when the rug gets pulled, those holding the potato last, they lose everything. So whenever I see these influencers out there talking about just believe in something and just hold your meme coins for the long run, that is such bullshit. It's so stupid. It's no, you're going to trade. Don't become a cult member. Get in, get out, take your profits and run. And then put it into something that will hold value over the long run, like Bitcoin or stocks that earn a ton of capital, you know, stocks that make really good money. Those are the best assets over the long run, right? So that's what we do. We trade short term to accumulate assets that we could hold over the long run. Were there any big losers or any kind of regrets that you guys have from this year?
always?
Let's
Where do
point them
I
out. What hasn't worked?
start?
What didn't work in the stock world?
Well, I can tell you this year I finally tax loss harvested some very bad decisions coming off of the 2021 bull craze. So
Yeah.
I will say during that phase, I ended up picking up some stocks that were overvalued, and then everything, you know, kind of went downhill. And so I tax loss harvested those bad boys finally. So yeah, I would say my past haunted me a bit, but fortunately my multi-baggers have outweighed a lot of that, and I harvested losses to be able to take some gains on things like Netflix, Meta, you know, into the close of the year. So
Awesome.
and I'm sure there's other things.
I am smiling because she called out something that is kind of painful today. I tax
Sorry.
loss. No, it's funny because it's so timely. I tax loss harvested some call options in Stitch Fix at the beginning of this year. And granted, they were expiring this year, but today Stitch Fix is up 50%. And so I think the calls would have been, I'm not sure I think those calls would have still been losers overall, even if they had an extra year of expiration. But it's just funny to see. I mean, that was definitely one of those classic 2021 bubble stocks where we were just wrong about the trajectory of the business. Like we thought they were going to be, you know, one of these big players that were going to use AI heavily in fashion, and they could become a huge, much bigger company over time. And then they just didn't execute, and the business just fell apart over the last couple of years. And so those calls ended up being a nice tax loss harvest, aka worthless at the beginning of the year. But here we have them joining the party again here in this momentum driven market, up 50% on what I would say were still pretty bad results for earnings this last quarter, but maybe slightly better than their previously horrendous quarters this year. So stock
Well,
gap.
so I know this was painful for you, but the good news is if this momentum market continues, I think there might be more opportunity. I mean, if you just look at this multi-year accumulation range, the fact that a lot of stocks are breaking out of this is, to me, a really good sign for Q1, right? Like anything could happen. But whenever I look at the Russell, right, whenever we look at small cap, we've got this inverse head and shoulders for, you could call this whatever pattern you want, but to me, this is a massive bullish pattern where I think if the economy keeps rocking, if we see the roaring 20s 2.0 in 2025, I think a lot of capital is going to flow from large cap down here into the Russell. And a lot of these beat stocks, we're going to have more momentum plays, if I can speak, to the upside. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to in 2025 is that, along with, if Bitcoin can finally get through this 100K zone, my next big profit target that I've been talking about for multiple years now is in the 120-ish range. So yeah, still heavily net long Bitcoin. Let's just keep this party going, guys. Let's keep the money printer going. If we can talk to the Fed, let's get these rates much lower. Let's inject capital. China's doing that. Trav, I think that's a case that you've made, is that the stemmies are coming for China. And, do you think 2025 is going to be the year of the dragon or whatever?
Oh man, it could be. I feel a little bit like Charlie Brown getting rug pulled, after calling China the potential non-consensus trade of 2024. And we've actually traded around it and made money, but it wasn't nearly the sector-wide opportunity I thought it was going to be in 2024. But I do think 2025, with this massive stimulus coming down the pipe, it looks very interesting. The Chinese economy, everyone's still very bearish on it. It's like, oh, they've been in deflation and they got these structural problems in their economy and the real estate sector is terrible. And it's like, yeah, you could have said the same thing about the US in 2007, 2008, 2009. And then the stimmies came out and the economy turned, and then all of a sudden it was off to the races. And so I think that potential is there in China. There's going to be some tough things to navigate through with the U.S.-China relationship, obviously, but yeah, I mean, they're clearly telling the market. They've been telling the market since like the September-October timeframe that big stimulus is coming. They outlined big stimulus for the corporate sector, for the local government sector, and then just this week we're kind of giving hints that big consumer-led stimulus is coming in early 2025. And so if that ignites the animal spirits in both the economy and the stock markets there, we could see some big moves off of stocks that are trading at very low valuations relative to their US peers.
Awesome. All right. Well, look, we've got 15. We do have a time constraint today. We've got a class in 15 minutes. So we've got a lot of questions. I'm going to speed run this. So let's try to keep these answers, let's say, less than a minute a piece, and then we might be able to finish up on time. First question, Colin Talks Crypto is asking, can you cover the inverted yield curve, which was the deepest and largest in 40 years, and the elevated Fed funds rate, rising unemployment, and the likelihood of a massive crash in 2025? What do you guys think? Again, there was a lot of reasons to be bearish, right? We saw unemployment ticking up. We saw rates go up. A lot of people got spooked, right? And yet the markets went up. So is this a precursor for a big recession or a crash? Yeah, good luck keeping this answer short.
Well, we had said, I think all throughout the year that the yield curve, wasn't as much of a big thing to worry about. It's not a perfect signal for predicting recession. Yes, it has predicted some recessions in the past, but it's not a perfect predictor. Also, we had very, very high short-term rates. We knew that those rates were going to have to come down. So there was a reason for the yield curve to be inverted. That didn't necessarily mean it was going to be a recession. And we did so far hit the soft landing. The yield curve has mostly uninverted. Like if you look at the 2-year, 10-year spread, we are now positive. We went from deeply inverted to now positive, where it should be. And that should continue with short-term rates probably getting cut again next week with the Fed meeting. So I don't think we really should be really worried at all about the shape of the yield curve at the moment. If anything, we just need to keep vigilant in 2025 about any kind of upticks in inflation or any kind of scenarios where, the Fed is going to have to reverse course again. But right now, I don't think it's anything to stress about.
Awesome. Next question, Nikki, is there anything that we should know for tax lost harvesting time?
Yeah, the biggest thing in the US with securities is if you're going to harvest losses to net them against gains or carry them over into future years, you want to be aware of the wash sale rule. So a lot of people will sell and then think they can be cute and buy it back, at a lower price, but you need to wait 31 days to buy the stock back. So that's for securities. The good news for you crypto peeps out there is they never changed the tax law. So crypto gains are not subject to wash sale rules. So you can sell losses, which I don't know if there are losses out there right now with Bitcoin at all-time highs, maybe some of the altcoins, maybe some ETH. There's some losses there. I don't know, but yeah.
I did take a loss today. I actually got stopped out on a breakout trade that trapped me yesterday, but whatever.
Well, no wash sale rules for crypto in the US, at least so far, as long as it's not a security.
Yeah. The beautiful thing is Nikki is one of the only financial advisors probably in the world that deeply understands crypto and works with a lot of really wealthy Bitcoin traders and investors. So she knows her shit. All right. A couple of questions here. What's the process of getting out in strength on a trade? So like if you have price going in your favor, what do? Well, I predefine profit targets and scale out. That's it. We probably talked about that 100 times on the show. Predefining a target, you have strength. It's hard to close because it's going in your favor. So take a piece off the table and let the rest ride. That's what I do.
You can also trail strong price and trail it day by day.
Trailing stops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you reckon we are in the crypto bull cycle? Another 3 to 4 months to go, 6 to 9 months. Which cycle does this one most resemble in your opinion? 2017. Which crypto trends and narratives are you paying the most attention to? Yeah. So this is probably a question that a lot of people have is like, where are we? When is the top, right? Nobody knows. That's why I'm letting price action be a guide. So like, I think when we get to certain levels, it matters how we got there just as much as it's important where we are, right? Like the fact that we had an 8-month consolidation period before finally breaking out to 100K to me is very bullish. Had we just gone from 25 straight to 100, that's way overextended. And we did go from 25 to like 70 in a way too fast of a time period. That's why it took 8 months to consolidate. So I think we are in the second half of the game of this bull cycle. Where's the top? Well, there's 3 things that we look for. We look for fundamentals. We look for on-chain metrics. We look for capital flow, stuff like that. We also look at market sentiment, fear, greed index. We also look at the technicals, right? And so far, everything is still bullish. The only thing that's kind of freaking me out right now is market sentiment. But every now and then we get a liquidation. We shake out the people that are too euphoric and have too much leverage and too close of stops in the market. And so, yeah, where's the top? I don't know, but I'm letting price action be a guide. Next question.
Add real quick, I do feel like the euphoria this cycle hasn't been as bad as we've seen in the past.
Not yet.
Right? Like we're not quite there. We're not quite there. Go ahead.
Not 2021. It's not 2021.
No.
When SPACs start making a comeback, we'll know.
Yeah. We have time, guys.
Okay, next question. The final lens asks, how much is life-changing wealth really? It's a good question.
It's different for everybody.
But how much is it really?
How much is it really?
Go get in our community and run through the escape velocity exercises that we have and spreadsheets that we have, and you'll know for yourself,
Yeah, that literally is how we define financial freedom, is escape velocity. And we just got a new page here for the wealth building community. Go to skillincubator.com and you can see we don't actually describe the escape velocity portfolio too well, but what that is where you have an investment portfolio that grows at a faster rate than the cost of your dream lifestyle. That means that you can live your dream lifestyle without having to work or add capital to the portfolio, and you continue to get wealthier over time. So I think that's the best way to define it. And then the variables there are, well, how much does your dream lifestyle cost and what is the return in your portfolio? So that's why I think Nick says that number is different for everybody, because those variables are different for everybody. But that's the framework that if you can figure that out, that's the best definition, in my opinion, of true financial freedom.
But I will say you can have life-changing wealth come your way without necessarily reaching your EVP, but that's for a different story, but that's just my opinion. Like if it's going to be something that helps you buy a house, maybe you haven't met your EVP, but you just paid off a home for your family. That's life-changing wealth, right? I don't know.
Yeah, there's different steps.
The definition changes per person.
Yeah. Robin, what is the process for issuing shares at the market?
At the market.
At the market. Do MicroStrategy get permission to issue so many thousands new shares and then free to sell them at any price over any period, or are they locked into a specific release schedule? Yeah. So Trav, do you want to just explain how MicroStrategy is, issuing both the debt and the equity, and then what their restrictions are?
Yeah, and ATM is a tough acronym because it means different things. Like in options, it means at the money. In reference to a stock offering, an ATM is an at the market offering, which is a type of offering that a company files for. And then essentially it allows them to sell up to a certain dollar amount, and they can basically do it however they want, as fast as they want, or as slow as they want. So the parameters are kind of defined by the terms of the ATM offering itself. And you'll see a company when it files an ATM, it'll usually give you some details like what's the total cap, dollar cap, what brokers are they using to execute the ATM? Are they using any sort of like VWAP price mechanism, or are they just able to like sell as much as they want if the volume's there in the market? So ATMs can be done a little bit differently, but typically companies are using them to have an open-ended way to sell stock. And so again, some companies will sell that stock in as short as 1 day, like MicroStrategy and GameStop have done in the past, or it may be something that they try to do a little bit of each day for, say, a year. But once that ATM is in place and it's been authorized by the board, and they have all the documents that have been submitted publicly so that the public is aware of that the ATM exists, they can go out, assuming there's not some like M&A offer for the company, for instance, they can go out there and and sell basically at any time. And it really is it kind of depends on volume in the stock, and it kind of depends on if the company likes the price at which the stock is trading, if they want to sell stock at that price. And so ATMs, like I said, can just be different based on the company's goals. With MicroStrategy, they have multi-billion ATMs that they complete in a matter of days. And so they're able to do that because there's high volume. They like the price at which they're selling stock. If that price collapses and the premium to NAV that MicroStrategy trades at collapses at some point, then ATMs will not be something that you will see them doing aggressively, because it will destroy value. It will create too much dilution at too poor of a price. So keep that in mind.
The stock geek himself explaining the stock process. Love it. Okay, a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up so we can get to class here. Crypto Advice was asking, I think this is maybe a good one to end on. Where do you guys see the market heading towards in the next 10 years? What ways can we protect our money from external and potential AI threats? So it's funny enough, Travis and I are actually getting ready to launch a newsletter. We're going to talk about a lot of this stuff, but yeah, where do you guys think over the next 10 years things could go? Do you think AI is going to make business as usual irrelevant? Is it going to make things better or worse? Maybe let's just give like a snapshot of our thoughts, or just one little nugget, since, we could spend hours talking about this, but yeah, what do you guys want to throw out there?
I'm pretty optimistic on the next decade. I think the technology is moving so fast that there's going to be new things that cycle into the markets as tradable, public companies. AI's it. There's certain concerns about AI taking jobs and what that's going to do to the economy and to people's incomes. But at the same time, I'm also optimistic that it'll create new jobs and new needs out there. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm going to go into the next decade as an optimist for the future.
Love it. TD.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty similar. I don't think AGI is something to worry about. I know people are talking about AGI could potentially happen in 2025. First of all, I think AGI is poorly defined. I think it's unrealistic to expect AGI. I mean, they're just now getting the video generating models to be like reasonably good, and you think AGI is all of a sudden going to pop up and start taking over, nuclear power plants and doing whatever it wants in the world? I think that's science fiction. They're barely getting the agent reasoning stuff like going, so I think we're still a ways away from that. So I don't worry about it as much, but I am optimistic that it's actually going to create lots of different businesses, use cases, tradable opportunities in the markets. It's already adding to our toolkit as far as our investor toolkits, our creator toolkits. There's a lot of opportunities it's giving us to do more things with less resources. So very optimistic on that side of things. So definitely more optimist. And over 10 years, market almost certainly going to be higher. Will we go through some nasty periods? Definitely. We're not in a forever bull market.
Awesome. All right. I'm just going to give you my anecdotal experience. I am more motivated and excited about work than I ever have been. I'm also like what I've put off for my entire career, which is learning to code. I am more excited about than ever because I have these AI tools to help me learn way faster than I ever could and create way faster than I ever could and build things and iterate and test. And like, so I think about that on a mass scale of hundreds of millions or billions of people that are using these tools and how much more efficient they're going to be and how much more we're going to get to create. So I think, just the startups and the opportunities we see over the next, forget a decade, just like 2 to 5 years is going to be mind blowing. So I am extremely optimistic. I don't think this is going to be a thing where we're going to just see mass unemployment and everybody's in poverty. I think it's going to be the opposite. I think it's going to be a driver of prosperity. And the people that use AI are going to be much more powerful and have more influence than people without it. So absolutely use the tools that are out there and put time every day into learning if you can. So
Awesome.
One more question and then we'll go. I know we got like 3 minutes until class. So if my child is 9, if I want to make an investment for his future and not touch it for 10 years, would you go with 1 Bitcoin or 100K in physical gold? Consider all variables like potential quantum hacks or whatever comes down the line. Ooh, I like this one.
Timely question after talking about quantum.
Yeah, you got to put a Bitcoin in a hardware wallet and you can't touch it for a decade and who knows what happens, or you hold the physical gold and you want that to be life-changing money for your 9-year-old when he's 19.
Bitcoin. Done.
Trav?
Isn't there a middle path? Can't you go like, half
no middle path, all or nothing. I'm going gold, man. I don't know what this Bitcoin thing's about. I just heard about it.
You are not. You liar.
Yeah, Bitcoin all the way, of course. Trav, you going gold?
I would be more heavily Bitcoin allocated, but it wouldn't be all or nothing for me. I'm gonna poop the party.
Yeah. No, of course we'd have to take the middle path.
This is why we love you, Trav. You keep us sane and on track, From getting
I just want Trav to get insanely bullish and irrational about something.
That's when you know it's the top, though.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, guys, we could wrap it up there. Thanks to everybody for hanging out with us today and sticking with us through the years. 2024 has been a hell of a year, both for stocks, crypto, startups. Even Peter Schiff is kind of happy. Gold had a new all-time high. So have a lovely Christmas holiday season. I'm going to be putting out some new videos over the next week. I know Nikki's working on some. Maybe we'll get something on Stock Geek TV by the end of the year.
Yeah, baby.
And have a great week. Have a great month. And we will see you guys in 2025.
Yay, absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.